Okay, it's 8:30. Let's start the meeting. Do we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Artisan,
Here.
Mr. Lewis,
Here.
Mr. Dixon,
Here.
Mr. Bakley, Mr.
Oh, I
Bakley,
thought you said that. Here.
Mr. Carter,
Here.
Mr. Postles,
Here.
Mr. Sheelo,
Here.
Mrs. Smith. We have a quorum.
Okay. First thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Meeting minutes for June 26, 2025 will be considered for approval. Are there any questions or additions?
So moved.
Can I hear a second? All those in favor say yay. Yay.
Yay.
All those against say nay. Hearing no nays, motion passes. We have the public comment period. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to comment? Hearing none. County Commissioner Liaison is not here, so I guess we're not going to have any reports. All right. Moving on to appointment. 8:35 a.m. Wynn Dobson and Foreman, a presentation on the combined sewer system of Altoona and effective on receiving waters.
Hi, I'm Catherine. This is Dave. We're both from Wynn Dobson Foreman. I'm going to try to see if I can get this set up for you guys. Wait, we'll keep it short and sweet this morning. Okay. You already got it. Perfect. Okay. Go back here. Okay, so this is the combined sewer system of Altoona and the effect of receiving waters. I believe we presented this to, go ahead, Dave. Oh, okay. I believe we presented this to Logan Township, and one of you guys were there, so you wanted to bring it over. Yeah, was that you? Yeah, awesome. So just a little bit of background of this project. The CSO systems were built back in the 1850s, and then back in the 1950s, the easterly, the westerly plant were built on both sides. About 30 years later, in the 80s, Gwen Dobson and Foreman did a study that first measured the first flushes of a CSO discharge, then determined the capacity of then CSO tanks on the easterly and westerly side. One's 1.3 million gallons, one's 1.6. Just to keep in mind of time frame, the Clean Water Act was passed in 1972, so any sort of structure for regulating pollutant discharge was still relevantly new to that. So let me see here. Okay, there we go. I was trying to press that and it wasn't working. So this is the easterly side, and basically in the middle is the 1.6 CSO storage tank. I don't know if you can see it, but these tanks fill up, and once they pass through screening, they discharge into the stream when it rains really hard. The CSO tanks remove an additional 22 to 25 tons of trash per year on both sides that would otherwise go into the streams if we did not have these tanks. Thank you. Just to show how massive these tanks really are, this is the westerly side at Tuckahoe Park, obviously all underground, super big, and this is the westerly side as well at the influent area. Not going to spend too much time on these, just want to show you how massive these are. This is also the westerly side of the overflow box culvert that goes into the stream. Then this is the easterly side, again, massive CSO tanks. So we did this study back in the 80s to determine the size of these tanks, built the tanks, but we never actually really determined if these tanks were effective and if they worked. So EPA, DEP had requested the effectiveness of these tanks and to further prove if they actually worked. So that's kind of where we are today. Back in 2020, Gwen Dobson and Foreman wrote up a long-term control plan that was approved by DEP to further, approve if these tanks actually even worked. We broke it up into two different phases. Phase 1 investigation, which we're currently wrapping up, and phase 2 long-term control plan update on phase 1 findings. We started sampling back in June 2021. This is our last summer of sampling. And we also had a wet weather capacity study that was submitted back last summer, which I'll get a little bit more into that. So with our investigation, phase 1, we have grab sampling and in-stream monitoring. We have 2 different EXO units, and they sit both, I believe, on the easterly side right now. Last summer we had them both on the westerly side. They sample for dissolved oxygen, temperature, conductivity, stage, a lot of parameters that are important in regards to water quality. And then for the grab sampling, whenever it rains really hard and these tanks fill up and they discharge into the stream, we're essentially storm chasers for the day. So if you see us out in our waders in the rain, that's probably us. So we sample for similar parameters: dissolved oxygen, pH, temperature, biochemical oxygen demand, nitrogen, total suspended solids, and obviously more importantly, fecal and E. coli. We typically try to sample at least, 2 to 4 samples per location, and I'll show you the map that we have here. It's a little bit hard to see. I don't know if I can maybe zoom in at all. Yeah, we can zoom in a little bit. So those pink dots, we go all the way up or all the way downstream. We'll take 2 to 3, 4 samples per location as we move downstream. And I don't know if I can zoom out here. Oh, how do I go back? Maybe zooming in wasn't a good idea. Should I get... Okay, I'm gonna just zoom through these. Okay. So anyway, up to this point, with the in-stream monitoring and our grab samples, we have about 8 million data points so far, which is definitely a lot of data. And in terms of dissolved oxygen, over the past 4 years, it's only dropped, which is 5 milligrams per liter. That's the lowest it should go. It's only dropped 212 times out of 11,500 records. So 1.4% of samples on the Beaver Dam branch side, and then only 0.4% of samples on the Lil Juniata side. Now, when it comes to bacteria, fecal, and E. coli, it gets to be a little bit tricky and different. Bacteria water quality criteria with the swimming standards varies based on the swimming season. So fecal samples, for example, are technically not an exceedance because of that. So when we say only 10% of samples exceed the limit for fecal, that doesn't actually mean it goes over to 2,000 parts per million. And with the stat that we have, E. coli exceeded approximately 80% of upstream samples, 60% downstream, likely the result of dilution, not necessarily the treatment or natural reduction. And all the other parameters that I listed before, they've been minimal in effect and have had lower concentrations. In terms of flow that I think Dave had found these numbers last year when we did the wet weather capacity study. The easterly plant was rated for 35 million gallons per day, but can receive up to 40. Westerly was rated for 48, can receive up to 120, which is definitely a lot of flow. And we've had these overflow events exceed 900 million gallons a day. So if we have these tanks, why not build more and add more if we have this high flow? And to kind of go into why it's not feasible to really add additional capacity, Dave made this really great chart. And if we were to look at the additional capacity column on the left side, if you're going to go down to 30 million gallons per day of additional capacity and go over to percent reduction, it would only reduce 20% of all overflow events. So still 30 million gallons per day of additional capacity, that's going to cost tens of millions of dollars to only reduce 20% of events. So 80% of all those events would still occur. So further proof, it's just not bang for your buck at the end of the day. Also, we just don't have the room to add more capacity. This is in the middle right here. is the Tuckahoe Park westerly tank. That whole entire sidewalk, I wish my mouse would maybe work. I don't know if I can get, oh, perfect. Okay. Can you see it? Okay, there we go. So this whole side right here, that is the westerly tank. So clearly no room, residential, commercial areas all surround this. Same for the easterly side. This right here is all of the easterly tank. Residential, commercial areas, railroads, you name it. Definitely not a lot of room. So where we are now, like I said earlier, we're wrapping up phase 1 findings, going into phase 2 of the long-term control plan update to DEP and EPA. We're adding in items to long-term control plan like green infrastructure strategies, financial capability study, upcoming schedule and implementation of what's next. And we're working alongside Altoona Water Authority on this long-term control plan update. So why we're even here, we just hope to have semi-regular meetings during the development of all these control alternatives, just to get feedback on scheduling, funding sources, different ideas that anyone has, so on and so forth. We also hope to provide communication between Altoona Water Authority and local agencies like you guys, and these control goals are guided by what's best for the stream. So just wanted to keep it short and sweet this morning, and we could really, this is really opening a can of worms of, you could go down a rabbit hole with this topic. So anyone have any questions or comments, Dave and I are here to chat. And
Yeah, I have a real question. When I worked with the city, I walked the twin culverts behind Bellwood Avenue there. I've walked several of the combination sewers. Sewers are old, and they really need separated. Is there any movement on getting that done?
I mean, that's also another option that people have asked about, and it's not as feasible of an option. I think Dave could give a little more input on why that wouldn't be as feasible of an option.
Yeah, so you're right, a lot of the condition of a lot of sewers is old. Again, some of these were put in the ditch in 1850, and maybe they got bricked.
Some of them have beautiful brickwork in it.
Yeah,
some
yeah.
of the brickwork's amazing.
That's amazing, how they
It really
built
is.
these things.
And 2018 timeframe, a lot of the big combined sewers were actually lined. A lot of those brick lined sewers were lined with polyurethane. So there is maintenance and upkeep, and also I say limited separation only because the system is so vast, wherever it makes sense. The problem with separation that we get into is that whenever these main trunk sewers were laid out in the first place, way back when, they were laid out where the stream flowed because it was all one and the same.
Yeah, it was even easy for them because they just laid it in the stream and then filled it.
Right. You could close it in and it was done. So that's the low point. So whenever we're trying to eliminate small subsects of areas, the low point to get that subsection out ends up being the sewer. So while we might be able to separate in this catchment area, the most reasonable outfall location almost always ends up being the combined sewer trunk line. Not to say it isn't possible. It's definitely possible in some areas. But without a large, wide, huge scale, full replacement, full separation is going to be a very long-term endeavor. Not impossible, but very long-term.
And the tanks, how often are they inspected and cleaned?
Inspected, they're checked after every rain event, after they've run. Quarter-inch rain, I think, is the cutoff. And cleaning depends on how often it accumulates. They periodically check the sediment depth. Most recent one was 2 years ago, I think, where they cleaned the whole tank out.
Because I can remember one time walking the twin culverts there behind Bellwood Avenue. We had to go up and check the overflow with the bubble up. It gives us readings. And when I was walking up the one side, there was a railroad car coupler in it. Now, that would take a heck of a lot of volume and water to push that thing into that culvert.
Yep.
And if it could push that in there, I'm just wondering what else can be pushed in there.
Yeah, no, so the good part is with city street cleaning efforts and, again, limited separation, and as things have progressed, the size of material has definitely been decreasing. So previously, the bar screens that go into the tank were sized for shopping carts and railroad couplings and that sort of nature. They're actually in process of replacing those headwork screens, and because of the decreased size of the material, we were able to tighten up the bar spacing. So what we're seeing coming into there now is bricks and chunks of asphalt instead of
Well, that's better than railroad couplers.
yeah. So it is improving, but as far as solving the whole issue as a whole, is a much longer term endeavor. Did you-
So the term combined sewer, that relates to traditional sewerage from, private and public restrooms, bathrooms, et cetera, as well as maybe surface water?
It's stormwater. Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So and is that typical in many cities that, that there is a combination of those two things, or?
The older cities, the older, larger cities, Pittsburgh's, Harrisburg's, Clearfield has one, you guys, Hollidaysburg had one up until a few years ago. So not, I don't want to say super normal, but not irregular either.
Yeah, it's common.
Yeah.
And so
It's out there.
the basic, what you've explained and the ongoing challenge becomes when we get a significant weather event, the stormwater increases significantly. That's what these two tanks were built for, basically. And at whatever point in time, even though they've got massive capacity, if we get 3 inches of rain in 2 hours or something like that, ultimately there's going to be an overflow event of some kind.
Right.
And that
Right.
was the 1980s study focused on, the idea was, this is a outrageously large volume of water. We're probably not going to be able to capture it all. But can we capture the worst part of it? And that's where the first flush concept came into play. And so the idea is that when you get these tenth of an inch of rain and you get a little bit of inflow and a little bit here, a little bit there, things accumulate in the sewers. And then you get a big 3 inches of rain, and it all washes out. That was the first flush. So what they observed back then was roughly the first 30% of those big events had, I can't remember the exact numbers, but let's say 80% of the bad stuff, the stuff that accumulated in the sewer. So that's what the volume of the tanks were actually designed to capture, was that first flush of high strength waste that was going down to the stream and causing dissolved oxygen drops. So the idea was you flushed out the sewer into the tank could pump back into the sewer system after the storm had subsided, and then things would kind of go back to normal, and you capture and treat as much of the bad stuff as you could. I say bad stuff, but septage and mostly DOD. Again, that idea has changed because there was a large mixing system in those tanks at one. Still is, just not operated. The idea originally was fill it up, turn the mixers on. Whenever the storm goes away, you pump it back. They've since changed the operating scheme to more of a throughput, so they're screening as much as they can. So instead of only treating 1.6 million gallons, they can treat 3, 4, 5 million gallons throughout a storm by going through the tank and into the system. There might still be an overflow, but part of that overflow is still treated.
Yeah, I think the big issue with all that would have been how much contaminants is actually being put into our waterways.
Right, and that's part of it. The real basis of the issue is that bacteria goes a really, really, really long way. So just a little bit of sewage has a very, very high concentration of bacteria. So when you dump that into water, it only takes a little bit of sewage. Because during a rain event, nobody goes to the bathroom anymore than they normally do, right? So it's not like we're dumping that much sewage, it's that much stormwater. But the stormwater has just 1%, say, of sewage in it, and that bacteria then
Not only that, but everything off of the street, like oils and everything, will also discharge with all heavy metals, and
Yes,
everything else that you have to try to overcome.
absolutely. So that's where we're trying to figure out the best way to address this because, like you said earlier, we could, with enough money, I think it's possible, right? We could separate the sewers. Is that the best thing for the stream? I'm not wholly convinced because now all those things, the tons of sediment and things that do make it and get treated at the sewer plant would otherwise become an MS4 issue. So, not that they wouldn't get treated, but would we just be passing this along, this issue?
No, it's never a good picture.
No, it's not, and coupled with just how much the volume.
Yeah.
And the city of Altoona is in a very unique position because of being a headwaters community with smaller, relatively, streams to what goes out the pipe compared to a place like Harrisburg, who might have an equivalent CSO discharge to Altoona, but they're discharging to the Susquehanna with hundreds of times the flow. So when they discharge, the effect on the stream comparatively is much, much less than what the little Juniata and Beaver Neck branch does just because of size. So it's very unique in that aspect.
Any other questions, comments?
Interesting.
We're here. You guys know where to find us if you have any more or any questions. We're always welcome.
So you're saying the two storage tanks together are just over 3 million gallons?
Roughly, but they're totally separate systems.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I know you call that huge, that really isn't very big.
No, for the size.
When you look at stormwater flow, that's slightly above microscopic.
Whatever you talk about is a discharge that is, yeah, volume-wise, I agree. Yeah, scale of construction, feasibility in the locations that they're at, they've pretty much maxed it out.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, well, thank you very much.
Likewise. Appreciate you guys.
Okay, development applications. Benzel's Warehouse Edition number 2.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. All right, Ryan. It's all you, my friend. Maybe. It's thinking about it. There you go.
All right, well, I have some prompts, so that's very helpful to go through this. Well, thanks for having me out again. For the record, my name is Ryan Countryman with Stewart Group Consultants, here to talk about this month's major developments. The first one is the Benzel Warehouse Edition, number 2. And for those of you who are familiar with the site, this aerial photo that I've got here is the most recent that I could find, but the warehouse currently is approximately double the size of what's shown here. So there was an earlier edition, number 1, that more or less doubled the building out on the site of the property. And that's just kind of important context as we look at some of the later slides on here. But the current request is a final development plan to do another 25,000 square feet almost to this food distribution center. It's located here in Altoona. You've got the address there. It's on the west side of 6th Avenue behind some other industrial buildings, so it's got access to the road but no frontage. The site itself is kind of an irregular shape. The parcel has frontage that comes off of 6th Avenue here and comes back here, so it's kind of a panhandle parcel. Benzel's also own on a separate parcel this building and parking that previously had been kind of a retail part of their operation. And the whole area has got light industrial zoning going down here and general industrial up to the north, and then you've got some residential properties, but it doesn't really directly abut any residences. The proposed development is 2 additions to the current warehouse. So this part here is the original warehouse that you saw in the earlier photo. This part here is the addition number 1 that was done relatively recently. The current proposal that's called addition 2 is actually 2 additions, a big addition in the front of the building and then a smaller addition to the back. And what's kind of important for some of the review comments that you can see on this slide is just keep in mind the way the access around the building here is a little bit tight. Currently it's a lot more open here, but circulation to getting to the back, it's more constricted on the property lines with the proposed development. One of the things that the applicant has said is that this project is not going to generate any new employment, so they're saying they don't need to add any parking. That's something that the city's going to have to take a look at. And then the stormwater infrastructure is going to be added below what's currently parking lot areas. So this is just identifying where some stormwater facilities will go in the front of the building. With this proposal, really the only things that we had as comments on this was that we didn't have information on how the existing warehouse is built for fire code. And the reason I bring up the fire code is that the south side of the building, it's less than 20 feet, which is 20 feet is the fire lane requirement per fire code, and the proposal on the north would reduce from 29 feet to just 15 feet the circulation around the building. So we recommended that the fire code official take a look at how that building's built, because if it's got adequate sprinklers and fire separation in the building, then this design can work. But if the earlier portions of the building weren't anticipating this current expansion and we just don't have information, then this 15-foot fire lane on the side of the building doesn't provide adequate circulation per fire code to get around. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. Altoona will have that information from the prior permits, but none of that was included in the materials we had for review. So it's just sort of like, well, I don't know how that's going to look. One small detail on the plans, there is an existing fire hydrant here where even if the fire code official says that it's okay because the building's adequately designed for fire protection, this existing hydrant will probably have to be moved because that still doesn't comply with fire code, but that's a detail that can be handled on construction plans. So that's sort of previewing our recommendations, which was just a couple of things that the city would need to look at, and it's a fork regarding fire code and compliance with that, but if the prior additions anticipated that, there's no problem, and if they didn't, then some redesign might be needed. Looking at the project with respect to the Alleghenies Ahead comprehensive plan, plan calls for job growth to address the demographic challenges. This is a good example of an expanding business, and it does not appear to create any specific conflicts with the comprehensive plan. So, any questions on Benzel's Warehouse Edition number 2?
Hearing none, I guess I'll ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say yea. Yea.
Yay.
All those against say nay. Hearing no nays, the motion passes.
Thank you. Well, next project is sheets number 14 rebuild. So this is the first of 2 sheets related projects, different sites. This one is in Altoona. I've got the aerial photo here. The plan is to demolish this existing sheet store that was built around 2000 and completely rebuild it as a new store with a very similar layout, but that's what Sheets was requesting permission to do. So it's in City of Altoona, Beale Avenue and North Logan Boulevard. Be talking about kind of the roads and access because the project had a number of waiver requests, most of the waivers were really small things that I'm not going to get into unless people had questions, but things like the code saying that drive-through facilities had to be face-to-face. The intent there was to reduce noise from the speakers and drive-throughs. This sheet's what they're proposing is touch screen, so it doesn't. They're asking for a waiver because it's not a face-to-face kind of drive-through. You just order your car wash on the touch screen. But the bigger thing that we commented on was sidewalks, and we'll get into that on some of the other slides. So current site, this is the layout. It's all on this parcel here with North Logan Boulevard and Beale Avenue wrapping around. Then this extension of Waterloo Road is actually a private drive. It's on a shared access easement with the strip mall building to the south. So there's no public road here. It's just a private drive where half that drive is on each of the two parcels. Site's got industrial zoning, so the proposed use fits with the zoning, and more industrial over on this side of Logan. But there is a steep drop here. Some of you probably know, going from Logan down to the railroad tracks, and then you've got this Logan Bridge. The new store is slightly larger than the old store. Car wash is slightly larger. 6 total fuel canopies, or fuel canopy with 6 islands rather. New stormwater system below ground, and 40 parking spaces. 2 drive-throughs, 1 drive-through related to the car wash, another drive-through at the back side of the store where you can order up whatever you're picking up from the store without having to go in. For this site, the big issues are it's really just a rebuild and replace what's there from a lot of ways. There's no changes on the proposed access. The parking area, and this is important for some of the later comments, is slightly below grade compared to the roads around it. And the application had 7 waiver requests. The one waiver request, we've got kind of listed 6 here, but the one that was interesting with this is that the applicant was requesting to not have to do sidewalks. Altoona zoning says that for commercial development, you do have to install sidewalks where they don't currently exist, or you get a waiver. The standard for a waiver is that the result be equal or better than what normal compliance with code would have required. In this case, Sheets was just saying, well, we don't want to have to put in sidewalks because the sidewalks won't connect to anything. And our recommendation was that instead of just granting that waiver, that the city probably take a look at one of the policies in their Altogether Altoona plan that got adopted last year, which is that for sites that don't do the sidewalk upgrades, that they pay a fee in lieu to this general sidewalk fund to pay for sidewalks in other locations. I'm going to back up a couple slides to kind of illustrate why that would be. So right now there are sidewalks on the west side of Beale Avenue, and then sidewalks in some of the newer industrial development further south on Beale, but not coming up to the site. So there's no direct sidewalk here, which is part of what Sheets was saying. The other thing Sheets is saying is that the North Logan Bridge over the tracks doesn't have sidewalks, and there are no current plans to replace the bridge. I looked it up. The bridge was built in 1959. PennDOT's going to do some resurfacing in the near future, but the bridge is going to be there for the foreseeable future. However, if the bridge were replaced under current standards, there would be sidewalks on that bridge. So from that standpoint, and with the policy in Altogether Altoona, that they not simply waive the sidewalk requirement, that they have the applicant pay a fee in lieu or redesign the project and add the sidewalks. But that's where the parking area being lower than the surrounding roads is if you were to add sidewalks, you would be doing a lot of redesign on their proposed site. So our recommendation was that the city not simply grant the waiver, but either require compliance with the zoning code or compliance with the policy and payment of that fee in lieu.
So if they went with the payment and the state, say 10 years from now, decides to put in a new bridge and puts a sidewalk in, are they going to be required to put their sidewalks?
Well, if, let's say the state replaced the bridge, the state would be putting in sidewalks on the bridge, and if there was also redesign of the interchange and other works, it's all hypothetical future projects, then the state may or may not be doing that work. And one of the things that is sort of helpful with the way Altoona's policy is written is that the money would go into a general sidewalk fund that would go towards whatever the city has already prioritized as the next need for sidewalks. And just a little bit of commentary on that. Coming from Washington State, the money would have had to have been spent within 6 years and in the immediate vicinity, which is why in Washington we don't see the fee in lieu approaches except for very small communities that have plans. And I was astonished to see that Altoona has that flexibility. So there's some real advantages to the system here, because then you have that option. Otherwise, the Sheets could put in sidewalks, and it could be many decades until the bridge gets replaced, and probably still some period of time before the properties along Beale Avenue to the south redevelop and bring that sidewalk connection up. So there's some options there. But the recommendation is to not just simply grant the waiver, because that, in our view, didn't meet the standard, that it's not a better outcome. And the fee in lieu would probably provide that equal outcome that the standard calls for. Looking at the project, Allegheny's Ahead seeks to decrease auto dependency and improve connectivity with non-auto paths and trails and anywhere within the county. Makes a big difference if your largest city's got good sidewalk connections, if you want to see a reduction in that. So that feeds the argument for requiring a payment and fee in lieu if they don't want to actually construct the sidewalks. And otherwise, the redevelopment is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and spent a lot of time looking at the plans and didn't find any issues with the proposed design other than just the proposed complete waiver on the sidewalk. Any questions on that review? Yeah.
I appreciate your approach of the fee in lieu and the recommendation that be included. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, you could hold the line and force them to build a sidewalk that starts and ends to nowhere, or if those funds go into the city, overall fund, we might get sidewalks somewhere where we really need them. Or 10 years from now, if they build the bridge and the city decides that they really would like to have sidewalks on that property, then there's a fund in place. One might not be the same money. It obviously wouldn't be the same cost as it would be today, but it seems like that would be a viable kind of redirect of what the current regulations say. So I would support that.
Any other comments or questions on this one?
Hearing none, do I hear a motion to pass?
Move to approve with the comments noted.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say yay.
Yeah.
All those against say nay. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. Next up is Tyrone Borough, where Sheets is going to be adding some charging stations at an existing Sheets store. We've got the map here, so it's really, the Sheets occupies a little over half of the city block. Alley's been moved, the store's been widened. You've got some residences and a thrift shop, and so it kind of wraps around, and we've got an aerial photo coming up. The plan is pretty simple. You've got the existing Sheets with a bank attached to it, and you've got it's kind of hard to see because the line width isn't very heavy, but the Sheets store is down here. You've got a parking lot area here, so these 6 stalls would get the chargers, be some new equipment up here and here, And then there's a car wash on this part of the property up on the north. This is the image that the applicant had provided, just kind of showing what the charging stations are going to look like. And then the ground equipment, all pretty standard. They also emphasize that there's some trees that was really the only issue. There's landscaping screening on the property between the Sheetz store and the alley that separates their site from the neighboring houses and thrift shop. Some of those trees are going to have to get replaced because of underground utility work and installing these chargers, but that's not a hard thing to accomplish. More detailed view of the parking stalls that would be affected. So yeah, just add in your chargers here, ground equipment here and here, and then it's got to get reviewed, and Conservation District will be approving the erosion and sediment control plan for the groundwork, and Tyrone Borough's got to complete their saldo and zoning review, but didn't find any issues from a design standpoint with this proposal. When looking at the comprehensive plan, Allegheny's ahead talks about the need to adapt the transportation network for new modes of transportation, with the goal of being able to help attract and retain younger residents. Well, I mean, the good news is that the economy, for a lot of reasons, we're actually seeing people moving into the region in the last few years for the first time in decades, more than people are moving out. So that's already happening on a transportation system. It's good to include new modes. Arguably, electrified transit is part of a new mode, because that wasn't really very common up until more recently. So debatable, but electric vehicle charging stations may be considered an emerging mode of transportation. So that would argue for support from the comprehensive plan standpoint, and we didn't see any issues with the plan or any design problems with the project to highlight. So that concludes our review. Any questions?
Can you get back to that map? What is here?
Yeah, so there's a thrift shop in one of these parcels. So this is an alley, and then you've got some houses and a thrift shop that was kind of north where the alley does this T and comes across. And so it's hard to see, but they've got barely outlined some existing trees, arborvitae that they use for landscape screening, and then you've got several of them down here that are going to get torn out and replanted.
What are they replanting this with?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah. Okay. And that's to
I was going to say, because really you don't have to worry about noise because it's pretty much commercial over here too. It's not like it's residential.
Yeah, it's zoned commercial, but most of them are actually houses nearby. So I think the thrift shop is I think the thrift shop is this parcel here, and then the other parcels on this side of the alley are all residential in use, but commercially zoned.
I was going to say, because if they didn't want to put in arborvitae, they could put in like ornamental trees and stuff like that. But since there are residential over here, yeah, you need a sound buffer.
Yeah.
Lights too. Okay.
I think there's 3 private residences on that corner.
Yes.
Of East 14th and that'd be West 14th and Pennsylvania Avenue.
Any other questions? Comments? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve? So moved. Do I hear a second? Second. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those against say nay. Hearing none. No. Hearing none, motion passes.
All right, well, we're in the home stretch here on permits. The last major development review is in North Woodbury Township, and that's the Brumbaugh Pullet Barns. This is just an expansion on an existing farm where the proposal is to add 2 new chicken barns and a storage building totaling a little over 52,000 square feet. The Brumbaugh Farm is in North Woodbury Township off Stone Brook Road. It's about a little less than 2 miles south of Martinsburg. The parcel where this is proposed is this irregular shaped parcel here. I've outlined in red the approximate location of the new buildings. Access would come through the existing drive that comes through these buildings. This other parcel that's also outlined is commonly owned. So it's all part of the much larger Brumbaugh farm, but the work itself would be on this portion of the farm site. The 3 buildings, again, the 2 chicken barns are the same design for each building, just mirror imaged. They're by far the largest, and then you've got a storage building on the south, large infiltration basin proposed to be on the east side of that, and then under drains. So all the surface water would get routed to this infiltration basin. There is a waiver request they'll get to that's related to the spillway on the north part of the basin. A couple of things just to note is that the project will also include installation of a new septic drain field here, but based on the topography, the drain field drain that direction, the spillway would drain more of an easterly direction, so you don't have conflicts there with the proposed location and design. The site, the things that we saw with this is increased production at an existing farm. Area is part of a larger agricultural security area to begin with. There is an agricultural easement on the property that is to retain it in that use. And then with some of the other conversations, the eventual drainage is to Plum Creek, but it's kind of a very long route to get there across some farm fields. The recommendations, really the only thing that we had was some comments on the waiver request. So the township's saldo says that the spillway needs to have 2 feet of freeboard to when there's a large storm event in that spillway. So the basin is designed to accommodate your normal levels of rainfall, and then the larger events, you've got the spillway that prevents it from getting overtopped and eroded. The applicant had pointed out that although the township saldo calls for 2 feet of freeboard, that the state level standards are only call for 1 foot of freeboard, and fine. But again, when the criteria for a waiver request is that you're producing an equal or better outcome, you need a little bit more information on why the additional freeboard was required in the saldo in the first place. I don't know. I looked through the purpose statements of the saldo, couldn't find that. And the applicant really didn't do much other than say, well, there's this easier standard, we prefer complying with that. So our recommendation was pretty much just that the township should get a little bit more information from the applicant on their reasons. And this might just be me having worked on a lot of permits that got appealed, but even if you think you're going to grant a waiver, if the applicant doesn't explain it, then they should probably give a little bit more reason than saying, well, we'd rather just do the easier thing.
All they would need to do is show that the 100-year storm event goes through the existing overflow structure and doesn't exceed the 1 foot of freeboard, and Woodbury Township will accept it.
Yeah, I could not. Yeah, I couldn't figure out why they required the extra freeboard, but there might be a reason, or it might. Yeah, I don't know. But I just know that the applicant just said, well, we want to do the easier thing, and in my past experience, I would want the applicant to do a little bit more explaining, and that might only be 1 or 2 more sentences. Or talking to the applicant and just putting a record of that conversation in the permit file, but I didn't have any of that information, so I just kind of suggested that they dot their I's and cross their T's, but everything else looked good. There are a couple of minor typos, but these are preliminary plans, and so it just pointed out some details that should probably get fixed on the final construction plans. Otherwise, looking at the comprehensive plan consistency, Allegany's ahead says to prioritize agriculture. That's exactly what this is. It's in the location that's already set up to be protected and retained for ag, and it doesn't create any conflicts with the comprehensive plan. So our recommendation was to ask for a little bit more clarity from the applicant, have him fix a couple of trivial details on the final plans, and recommended approval. So,
No
any questions?
subdivisions being done here?
No, not this month. No subdivision happening on this project, and this is the
Well,
last
the only
one.
reason I would have asked, then they would have had to do something about that access road.
Right. Yeah, it's an existing access road that just be extended.
As long as there's no subdivisions going on, then nothing has to be done with
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Ben, you're probably more familiar with this, but, I was kind of thinking big picture, planning, et cetera, and maybe, our agricultural counterparts in the county are thinking about this, but, last month we approved the dairy farm expansion, this potentially the chicken barn expansion. Is there anyone really looking at, especially, the Cove area where there's really high intensity agriculture and it's starting to become more intense? You think about like Lancaster County and the issues they have there with, spreading manure and I guess it's phosphorus typically they're trying to manage. Is that being looked at in the Cove area at all in terms of, what happens if, a month from now, 2 months from now, a different neighbor says, well, I'd like to build a high intensity hog operation. Somebody else says, well, I'd like to build a larger, dairy farm, et cetera. Not that we want to try to prevent any of that stuff as long as it's good things and, builds the strength of our economy. But is anybody looking at what happens at the end when there's too many nutrient management over that area?
Yes. The simple answer is yes.
Okay.
The conservation district keeps track of it. Any operation that has an animal of even down to the poor 4-H kid that has a single 4-H animal are supposed to have manure management plans. The conservation district inspects and enforces that aspect. Then once you get so many animals on either so many animals per acre concentration or so many total animals, then there is nutrient management regulations that kick in from the State Conservation Commission. And they look at the amount of manure, the amount of acres of ground that the manure can go on, and the manure is actually tested for the nutrient content, and it's there's quite a long list of steps to go through. But yes, it is looked at, it is watched, it is regulated. To prevent
Yeah, and I wasn't
the
necessarily
problem.
trying to create any more regulations, but
Well, it's already there.
yeah.
It's
I guess
already in place.
I guess what I was looking at from the little bit of the experience that I have is, it seems like those nutrient management plans are generally specific to the operator. So, they would require the Broombos to have a nutrient management plan. They'd require the Culps to have a nutrient management plan. England's, et cetera. Is anybody really looking at like the big picture of the Cove at instead of just one farm at a time or one operator at a time? Do you think that
Conservation's doing it, DEP's doing it, watershed wide for Chesapeake Bay.
Okay.
Maybe not to the details somewhere, but it's on the radar.
Yeah, for our county in specific, this would be the high priority area for those concerns.
The Cove is the third most agriculturally productive area in the state.
Yeah, that's
So we want to support them, but on the other hand, there's issues that you just mentioned that go along with that.
Sure.
Todd, to give you my personal opinion,
Uh-huh.
the DEP and EPA throws agriculture under the bus as being the first target
I was kind of looking at it more proactively instead of reactively and regulatory as, are there ways we should be looking at, positive nutrient management solutions so that farms like this can continue to grow without ultimately getting to a bottleneck where all of a sudden every project gets squelched, I don't know if anybody's looking, maybe that again is.
Might be in the cap, I'll have to look that up. I see what you're saying there. I'll
Kind of like
we're
the,
involved with the
we,
cap.
in a similar way, we talked about the sewage and the stormwater stuff, they built that stuff, but they probably, and it might have been really good that they built it when they built it, but they probably underbuilt it, and now the city's kind of grown and that to where now you can't really proactively resolve anything, so I'm thinking, how can we look ahead and provide solutions to, help things grow, basically. That being said, I don't have any concerns specific to what was presented.
No other questions? Comments? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to pass?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those against say nay. Hearing none, motion passes.
Right, so number 10 on your agenda are the staff level reviews. These are the ones that have been sent out to you via email over the course of this past month. Those you will have received in the consent agenda emails. Any questions on these ones here? And these are mostly just minor subdivisions, lot merges, any minor developments like a house or something like that that wouldn't rise to the level of being reviewed at our meeting.
None of them creating any landlocking?
No, not this time.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments on any of these? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to pass?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those against say nay. Hearing none, motion passes.
All right, number 11 on your agenda are the staff level reviews for the Metropolitan Clearinghouse items. These are typically permits and grants that were sent out also through email this past month. We have a couple of development permits, Chapter 105 water obstruction permit. This one on the right-hand side of your screen here is the annual submission for the county submitted to the Department of Environmental Protection and to EPA for some grants that are going to be statewide. So that, again, those were all sent out over the course of the month via email. Any questions on these ones here? Okay, before you, this is still part of number 11. We also have 3 letters of support that went out over the course of July. One was for the city of Altoona for the Baker Boulevard traffic calming project. This was a multimodal grant application. The EADS group applied for the de Gaulle Industrial Center rail expansion and cross dock facility phase 4. And Stifler McGraw applied for Allegheny Township's West Carson Valley Bridge replacement over Spencer Run. And those were all multimodal transportation grants, I believe. And then, I don't know, do you want to give an update on
Yeah,
the,
so just going back to the DCED multimodal, Tuesday I submitted the grant for Crawford Road in Tyrone Township. So that was submitted, those grants are due today. And that was about $1,078,000 for that project. And then the County of Blair submitted the North Norfolk Southern Safety First grant for 2 drones. They want to start up, Blair County wants to start a UAV drone program for 2 drones, and that's for safety features to kind of keep personnel and assets and resources out of hazardous or emergency situations, so they can view that basically from above and assess the situation before they allocate resources. So that got submitted last week.
Any questions on number 11 on your agenda?
You just need one vote, or? do you
I
need-
do need a motion for the whole thing. They were staff action. It was all staff actions.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the staff level reviews? Hearing a second. All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those against say nay. Hearing none, motion passes.
All right. Just some long-range planning updates to kind of let you guys know what we have been up to and where our major projects are sitting. As far as BRAVE, which is our county hazard mitigation plan, finally has been submitted and is under PEMA review. We have been working closely with Ernie from PEMA, who is kind of giving us some feedback and trying to help us work through the last part of getting this plan ready for the county. I'm not sure if you have anything else to add, but that's where we are with the hazard mitigation plan. For Altogether Altoona, both their comprehensive plan and their zoning code update, both have been approved by the city. So that is something that we've kind of been involved in for the last 2.5 years. And we're slowly going to be transitioning now into the implementation portion and just kind of overseeing that aspect of the plan and kind of checking in that way, which is very exciting. That is a very, very nice plan that CZB created for Altoona. So we're really happy that it is moving forward. The Hollidaysburg 2035 Comprehensive Plan. So this is something that, as you know, started in 2019. We kind of had to revisit it in 2023. Andrew, the Director of Community Development from Hollidaysburg Borough, and I have been working very closely to revisit the outreach that was done in this and kind of integrate new comments with what the outreach that was done in 2019 and 2020. And I am really happy with the result. I believe Ethan, who is the borough manager and also a planner, he has worked very closely on the implementation portion of this plan, which is the part that needed the most work because it was the least detailed part of the submission. And he has built out so many projects for the comprehensive plan that really hold the borough accountable, which I'm really looking forward to. So that project is going to be entering the 45-day comment period tomorrow, August 1st. We are submitting it, I believe the draft is done. We're doing our final edit of it today, and tomorrow it will be sent to you all via email, and it'll be available on the borough website, and copies will be available at the borough, but that will begin the 45-day public comment period, and we will be reviewing it at our August meeting, and I will be presenting it at our August meeting. And for the Bellwood-Annis Joint Comprehensive Plan, this is one that we just kicked off. It's very exciting. We just formed our steering committee and selected our steering committee. We had 35 total applicants. We had a couple applicants that came in kind of after our deadline, but we had 35 total applicants that were interested in being a part of the steering committee for this plan. I have never seen momentum like that for something like this in the past, and the applicants that we received were all excellent. It was impossible for us to, the consultant that we're working with, Mackin Engineering, wanted us to kind of narrow it down to maybe a dozen people. It was really, really hard for Bellwood Borough and Antis Township to agree on a dozen people for a working group, but we managed to do that, and we have a really, really strong steering committee that we're moving forward with. So we're really excited. I believe they just finalized their contracts with their solicitors. So I think that plan is ready to just kick off, and we'll have more information about that for our August meeting also when we do our kickoff. But we're really getting the ball rolling on that one now that Hollidaysburg and Altoona are wrapping up. That's what I have for updates on number 12. Do I have any questions on long-range planning updates? I don't need any action. I just want to give you guys an update on kind of what we've been working on, what has been wrapped up, and what is to come. I know August is going to be a pretty busy month for us in terms of review. So I'm going to send out the comp plan to you guys tomorrow, August 1st, so that you'll have the entire month to be able to review the comprehensive plan if you have any feedback. Do I have any questions? Awesome. Sure.
Just trying to think big picture for the entire county. Is as you look at these more regional comprehensive plans, is there any action or planning being taken into providing internet access to areas of the county that really don't have good internet access?
Absolutely. Our hazard mitigation plan kind of tackles that as one of the major issues. That it is a risk, it's a hazard, it prevents a lot of people from being able to have access to up-to-date information. So that's something that is a priority for us and something that we have been seeking out opportunities to kind of host open houses and host workshops and get, I don't know what to call them, get companies that might be able to fill those gaps, get them in and have them talk to those markets and see if they are potential solutions. But we've been working to organize those things in the past, absolutely.
ABI landed a contract, what was that last winter?
23, I
So
thought.
it has to be rolled out yet, but it'll take a little while, but it'll take care of it. Kind of looks like a J on the map. It starts at Williamsburg, it goes across like 164 up into Juliana Township. And ABI has also worked pretty heavily with a company called Crow's Nest, which is their local. And they've been able to get some pretty targeted signals into some of these hollows, some of the back areas that might otherwise just get skipped. And what I'm going to call a major coup, Williamsburg was finally able to convince a company to put a tower in. And so we'll be getting some decent cell service in Williamsburg.
You hope.
I was going to say the
Yeah,
tower's
they were
up, but nobody
finished.
wants to hang anything on
They've
it.
been working on it for months and months, if they ever get it finished.
And the BEAD program just
Yeah.
reopened again, so we might get more requests for applications as far as what you guys would see to approve for a letter of support through the county.
But absolutely, those are ongoing issues and priorities that we're paying attention to and continue to monitor to ensure that there is some level of equity and some level of effort that's being applied to those areas that, as you said, are really suffering. All right, if there's no other questions, do you want to take over, Dave?
Yeah, just over here.
Okay.
Briefly, just update everyone. We met with First National, that's our bank, shortly after the last meeting here. And concerns with, we haven't really updated our banking procedures for years and years. Our financial policy is relatively up to date. It was done in 2020, same with procurement policy. But they are recommending we go a little more heavily into the electronic world in terms of the transfers, in terms of monitoring and things like that. I don't want to get into a lot of detail in a public meeting because a lot of the point of this is to prevent unauthorized interventions and fraud. But there'll be some changes. You'll be seeing that coming through. I'm hoping to have a financial policy here next month. And the financial procurement policy at this point, we will probably combine the two. Procurement will become a chapter inside the financial policy because there's a lot of overlap between the two of them. Some of what we need to look at is how we report out to everybody as to checks, you have to actually sew the check and things like that. When you do it electronically, you don't get that stuff. So how does that get reported out? Do we need to change our voucher system? Things along those lines that we'll need to be looking at. I do have a couple of policies that I've looked at that others have adopted that have gone through this change relatively recently. So one of the nice things about public services, public documents are publicly plagiarized. So I don't need to reinvent the wheel for some of it. Some of it we will, because everybody has their own little quirks. So you likely be seeing a financial procurement policy update next month, and we'll go on from there. Part of our issue with that is PennDOT being our major funding source likes to see a cost allocation plan. We will likely need to update that with this policy change, and they will need to approve it. So this isn't going to be a standard bringing it in and approve it. We'll bring it in, make sure everybody here is happy with it. We'll have to send it down to them, get them to approve it, and we'll have to bring it back for a final adoption. But a little extra step in there compared to other policies, but that's basically what we're looking at. I just want to bring that to everybody's attention. It was a concern. Our biggest concern is we are treated as a business, and I did not know this, but a business only has 24 hours to stop a transaction. You can't wait for the statement to come out and then distribute it. It has to be done within 24 hours. That's kind of what started this whole thing. That's anything.
That's about it. The only thing I would recommend is to check out, we may have to go into an executive session and discuss that plan.
Yeah.
And then we would come out and do a vote. That would be the only thing that I would be worried about.
There's nothing to worry about. We haven't had any fraud against us that I'm aware of. We haven't been told of anything. It was the bank. We reached out to the bank. They reached back and said, wait a minute here. You may want to consider some changes. There's been some pretty fast-moving changes in the banking world in the last couple of years. So
And
that's bad for them for that.
they're looking at their aspect too, that they have to protect themselves. Because a lot of times this fraud ends up on their lap, so. All right, moving right along. Planning Commissioners Forum. Okay. Questions from the media?
I'm good, thank you.
You sure?
Yeah.
Well, we're doing our job. Okay, 16, announcements.
One I would like to add, it would be on next month's anyway. Wes had a duck out early. We are hosting the State Transportation Commission in District 9 in September. They were asking the MPO, the two MPOs and the RPO that are in District 9 to help with the planning of that. That meeting was scheduled for this morning. That's why we don't have Wes behind us here. I just wanted to mention that since they do rotate it, but it is kind of a big deal to have them in the area from the MPO perspective.
Okay, running down the announcements. August 1st, Transportation Safety Webinar. August 6th, PAC meeting, Altoona. August 7th, Blair Chamber Policy Committee meeting. August 7th, Natural Hazards Legal and Planning Workshops online. August 8th, CPDAP meeting, State College. August 8th, PA Transportation Advisory Committee Seminar online. August 20th, Southern Alleghenies Monthly CAP meeting online. August 25th, Transportation Improvement Program Priorities meeting online. August 27th, Food for Life meeting online.
I just want to add one more announcement because we just solidified the date for the Blair County Emergency Preparedness Summit will be held October 1st at the Blair County Convention Center, and they are is interested, I have the registration. I can send that email out if anybody's interested. We're basically asking the chamber to get involved as well and distribute a survey out to industry to find out what kind of things can the LEPC committee prepare, what kind of emergency things are they interested in receiving information on seminars on presentations. And one of the things in our planning discussion was ag terrorism, and because we have many ag-related folks here, and because of the impact that that it could have on our number one industry in Blair County, we specifically asked for help on getting presentations for ag terrorism. So if anybody's interested in that or has any feedback, just send me an email, let me know, and I can send you the registration link if you're interested in attending.
Okay, moving on to adjournment. I'd like to thank everybody for being in attendance today. And the next board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, August 28th, 2025 at 8:30 at this location. Meeting is hereby adjourned.